Kim Tae-ho walked off the metal ship onto the huge space station called Nexus. His black suit looked very plain next to all the fancy clothes the alien people were wearing. The air smelled different here because it was mixed for many different types of aliens to breathe all around him. Strange creatures moved about doing their business. The space station was bigger than any building Tae-ho had ever seen back on Earth. The walls were made of shiny metal that reflected light everywhere. Giant windows showed the stars and planets outside. The floor was smooth and clean with moving walkways that carried people from one place to another. Tae-ho had been working as Earth's first person to talk to aliens for 6 months now. Most of the aliens did not like humans very much. They thought Earth people were too young and stupid to be part of their important group. They said humans were still too violent and mean to join the big alien club. As he walked through the main hall, many aliens stopped to look at him. Some whispered to each other in languages the translation machine could not understand. Others just stared with their big eyes or strange faces. Tae-ho kept walking straight ahead like his mother taught him when bullies tried to make him feel bad. The tall crystal people called Vexery sparkled like diamonds when the lights hit them. They moved very slowly and made tiny bell sounds when they walked. The slug people called Morvani left wet trails behind them as they moved in special floating chairs that carried them around. But the scariest aliens were the gray ones called Zelaphi. They looked almost like humans, but their skin was smooth gray and their eyes were bright yellow like car headlights. They had sharp teeth that showed when they smiled, but it was not a nice smile at all. The Zelaphi controlled most of the space armies in the galaxy. One of the Zelaphi walked up to Tae-ho. His name was Carven, and he was an important leader among his people. He smiled, showing all his sharp teeth, but his yellow eyes looked angry and mean. "Hello, human," Carven said through the translation machine. His voice sounded fake and too nice. "I did not think simple people like you were allowed to come to real meetings. I thought you were only supposed to watch and learn." Tae-ho did not let his face show any anger, even though he wanted to punch this alien in his gray face. He had dealt with bullies before back on Earth, and aliens' bullies were not much different. They just looked strange. Earth is a full member now, Tae-ho said calmly. "We have the same rights as everyone else to join all meetings. I hope that will not be a problem for you." Many other aliens had stopped walking to watch what was happening. Some of them moved closer like they wanted to see a fight. Others took out small devices that looked like cameras. Everything felt very tense, and Dangerous Carven smiled even wider, showing more of his scary teeth. "Of course not human, but you should know that our meetings can be very hard for people who are not used to real space politics. Sometimes people get hurt when they do not understand how things work up here." Tae-ho understood exactly what Carven was really saying. The alien was threatening him. He was saying that bad things might happen to humans who got in the way. This was not just being mean, this was a real warning about danger. "I understand perfectly," Tae-ho replied. "Thank you for your concern." But inside his head, Tae-ho was thinking about many things. He noticed how the other aliens were standing around him. Some were blocking the ways he could walk to leave. Others were recording everything that happened. This was not a normal conversation. This was something planned ahead of time. The Zelaphi had brought friends with them. The crystal Vexery people were there making their tiny bell sounds. The slug Morvani were watching from their floating chairs. Even some of the other alien types that Tae-ho did not know were part of this group. All of them seemed to be working together against him. Tae-ho remembered his training back on Earth. Before he came to space, he had learned many things about fighting and staying safe. He had studied how to read people and understand when they were planning something bad. His teachers told him that aliens might look different, but they still acted like bullies when they wanted to scare someone. More aliens kept joining the group around them. Now there were at least 20 different creatures, all watching the human and the Zelaphi talk. It felt like being surrounded by a pack of wild animals who were deciding if they wanted to attack. Carven kept talking in his fake nice voice, telling Tae-ho about how dangerous space politics could be. He talked about accidents that happened to people who made mistakes. He mentioned how some aliens had gotten hurt when they did not follow the rules properly. Every word was a threat, but said in a way that sounded like helpful advice. This way, if something bad happened to Tae-ho later, Carven could say he had tried to warn the human about the dangers. Tae-ho listened carefully to every word. He also watched how the other aliens moved, and where they stood he counted how many there were. and which ones looked like fighters. His training had taught him to always be ready for trouble even when everything seemed normal. The space station was very busy with thousands of aliens walking around doing their work, but this group around Taeho felt separate from all that normal activity. They had created their own little area where something bad might happen. Some of the aliens started talking to each other in quiet voices. Their translation machines were turned off, so Taeho could not understand what they were saying, but he could tell from their body movements that they were making plans. The crystal people made more bell sounds than usual. The slug people moved their floating chairs into better positions. The gray Zelathi kept showing their teeth in those fake smiles. Taeho thought about the message he had received before coming to the station today. It was from his boss back on Earth telling him to be extra careful because they had heard rumors about trouble. The message said some aliens were very angry about humans joining their club and might try to do something about it now. Standing here surrounded by hostile aliens, Taeho understood that the rumors were true. These creatures had planned something. They were not just trying to scare him with words. They wanted to hurt him or maybe even kill him, but Taeho was not scared. He had been expecting something like this. His people back on Earth had prepared him for many different kinds of danger. Space might be new to humans, but fighting and staying alive were very old skills that Earth people knew well. The conversation with Carven continued for several more minutes, with the alien making more and more threats disguised as friendly warnings. Finally, the group started to break up as it became time for the big meeting to start. As the aliens walked away, Taeho noticed that some of them stayed close to him. They were following him as he walked toward the meeting room. This confirmed what he already suspected. Today was not going to be a normal day of talking and making deals. Something much more dangerous was about to happen, and Taeho needed to be ready for it. The space station suddenly felt much colder and more dangerous than it had when he first arrived. The friendly-looking aliens now seemed like predators watching their prey. The shiny walls felt like the inside of a trap. The big meeting room was like nothing Taeho had ever seen before. It was shaped like a giant ball with places for hundreds of different alien types to sit. Each group had their own special area with the right air to breathe and the right amount of gravity for their bodies. The human section was small because Earth was new to this group. Taeho sat in his chair and looked around at all the strange creatures. Some looked like giant bugs, others like walking plants, and some like things from scary movies. The room was so big that aliens on the far side looked tiny, like ants. A spider creature called Nala was in charge of the meeting. She made clicking sounds that the translation machines turned into words telling everyone to be quiet. The room became silent except for the humming of machines that kept everyone breathing the right kind of air. Carven stood up in his section. His gray skin looked shiny under the special lights. When he started talking, his words went to every alien in the room through their translation machines. Honored friends, he said in his fake nice voice, we need to talk about a big problem in the outer space areas. Humans have been taking over planets without asking us first. They are causing trouble for the peace we have worked so hard to build. Taeho listened carefully. He knew that everything Carven was saying was twisted to make humans look bad. The alien was telling parts of the truth but leaving out important details that would show humans we're not doing anything wrong. Carven kept talking for a long time. Other aliens who were friends with the Zelathi also stood up to say bad things about humans. A slug creature complained that human settlements were ugly and primitive. The crystal alien said humans were dirty and would contaminate clean planets. Severi accusation made humans sound like dangerous invaders who did not follow the rules. But Taeho knew the real truth. Every human colony had been built on empty planets that no one else wanted. Every time humans expanded into new areas, they followed all the proper rules. When it was finally Taeho's turn to speak, he stood up slowly. All the aliens in the giant room turned their attention to him. He looked very small and simple compared to all their fancy appearances, but his voice was strong and clear. When he began to talk, he started by answering each lie that Carven had told. He showed documents and records that proved humans had followed all the rules. He explained that human colonies were only built on planets that no one else was using. He proved that every complaint about human expansion was false. But while Taeho was talking, he noticed something strange happening. The air in the human section felt different. There were small whines that had not been there before. The lights were changing in tiny ways that most people would not notice. The gravity felt weird, like someone was playing with the control Teho realized that someone was messing with the room's system. Someone was preparing to make something bad happen to the human section. While he was standing there talking, this was all part of a bigger plan to hurt him. The other aliens in the room did not seem to notice these small changes. They were too busy listening to the argument between Teho and Carven, but Teho had been trained to notice details that other people missed. His teachers on Earth had taught him to always watch for signs of danger as he continued his speech defending humanity. Teho also started preparing for whatever was going to happen. His body looked relaxed, but his muscles were ready to move fast. His mind was calculating distances and escape routes. His training was taking over. The meeting continued with more aliens asking questions and making statements. Some seemed to believe Teho's explanations, but others clearly supported Carven. The room was divided, with some species supporting humans and others wanting to punish Earth for its expansion. Teho could feel the tension building like electricity in the air before a storm. Something big was about to happen, and he needed to be ready. The changes to the room systems were getting stronger. Now anyone who was really paying attention would notice that something was wrong, but the other aliens were too focused on the political arguments to notice the technical problems. They did not realize that the environmental systems were being tampered with. They did not see the small signs that indicated someone was preparing to cause an emergency. Carven seemed very confident as he listened to Teho's responses. His yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction, like he knew something that the human did not. His gray face showed the expression of someone who was waiting for the perfect moment to spring a trap. The other Zelethi in his delegation also looked pleased with themselves. They kept glancing at each other with knowing looks. Their body language suggested they were all waiting for the same thing to happen. Teho finished his formal response to the accusations and prepared to sit down. The vote on humanity's status in the Outer Rim territories was about to begin. This should have been a simple procedural matter where each species would register their position, but as Teho reached for his voting control, the room's alarm system suddenly activated. Red lights started flashing everywhere. Sirens began blaring. A mechanical voice announced that there was dangerous contamination in multiple sections of the room. Chaos erupted as hundreds of aliens scrambled to put on emergency breathing equipment. Many species started moving toward evacuation points. Automatic safety systems began sealing off different sections. Some aliens activated personal force fields, while others called for their bodyguards in. All the confusion and panic. Most of the creatures in the room were focused on their own safety. They did not notice the maintenance worker in protective coveralls who slipped through a service door behind the human section, but Teho noticed. He saw the figure moving with purpose through the emergency responders. He recognized the way this person moved, like a trained fighter, pretending to be a regular worker. He understood that this was not really a maintenance emergency. This was the moment Carven had been waiting for. This was when the real attack would begin. Teho remained standing at his podium while the other human delegates moved to safety stations. He looked calm and unworried, even though alarms were screaming and lights were flashing all around him. Inside his mind, he was counting seconds and measuring distances. He was remembering his training and preparing his body for combat. He was getting ready to show these aliens exactly what humans were really capable of. The figure in coveralls was getting closer, now moving through the maintenance areas behind the walls. Soon they would emerge and the real test would begin. The attack came exactly when Teho expected it would. The fake emergency had cleared most aliens away from his area, leaving him standing alone at the human podium. Red warning lights kept flashing and sirens kept screaming, but Teho stayed perfectly calm. Behind the walls, a deadly killer was moving closer. The man's name was Li Kang-min, but he was using fake papers that said he was a maintenance worker. He was one of the most expensive assassins in the galaxy, a human who had turned his people's natural fighting skills into a way to make money. Killing Pioplican Min had been hired by the same aliens who called humans primitive and stupid. The irony was perfect. They hated humans, but they needed a human killer to do their dirty work because only a human was fast and smart enough to get close to Teho. His plan was very simple: wait for the fake emergency to isolate the target, then emerge from the maintenance area and kill the ambassador with a plasma cutter that looked like a repair tool. Make it look like an accident during the emergency evacuation. Leave no evidence that it was Murder King Min. moved through the service tunnels with practiced skill. He had studied the station's layout for weeks. He knew every corridor, every access panel, every security camera. His modified plasma cutter was ready to fire. It would slice through a human body in less than 1 second. The weapon was disguised to look exactly like the tools carried by real maintenance workers. Even if someone saw him using it, they would think he was just doing emergency repairs. During all the chaos, no one would realize that murder was happening. He reached the access panel directly behind Tehozia's position. The plasma cutter was charged and aimed at the ambassador's back. This would take exactly 3 seconds. Emerge from the panel, fire the weapon, retreat through the maintenance tunnels. By the time anyone figured out what happened, Kyung-min would be gone and Taeho would be dead. The investigation would conclude that primitive human safety equipment had failed during the emergency. The perfect crime. Kyung-min opened the access panel and stepped into the main chamber. His plasma cutter was already aimed at Tehozia's back. His finger was on the trigger ready to fire, but then something impossible happened. Ed Taho turned around. The ambassador moved slowly, like he was just checking on something behind him, but his eyes met Kyung-min's with the calm look of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. There was no surprise, no fear, just a small nod, like he was greeting an old friend. Hello, Lee. Kyung-min, Taeho said quietly. His voice was barely louder than the alarm sounds. Former Republic of Korea Special Forces, kicked out for selling military secrets. Now you work as Phantom in the space mercenary business. Your current job pays 12 million Galactic credits from Zelothi. Military companies who want to make my death look like an accident. Kyung-min's eyes went wide behind his mask. The plasma cutter shook in his hands for just a moment. How could this diplomat know so much about him? How could he have known this attack was coming? The tiny moment of shock was all Taeho needed. The ambassador moved faster than Kyung-min thought. Any human could move. His left hand hit the assassin's wrist with perfect accuracy. The plasma cutter flew from Kyung-min's grip and clattered across the floor. Its safety systems automatically turning it off. The strike was not just fast, it was placed exactly right to hit the nerve that would make Kyung-min's hand go numb immediately. This was not luck. This was the result of years of training in exactly how to disable an armed opponent. Before Kyung-min could recover, Tehozia's right hand grabbed his collar and pulled him forward into a devastating knee strike. The impact drove all the air from the assassin's lungs and sent him stumbling backward, but Taeho was not finished. His elbow connected with the side of Kyung-min's head with the exact amount of force needed to knock him unconscious without killing him. The assassin collapsed to the floor like a broken puppet. The entire fight lasted exactly 3 seconds. From the moment Kyung-min emerged from the access panel to the moment he hit the ground unconscious, Taeho had moved with inhuman speed and precision, neutralizing a trained killer in the time most people needed just to understand that an attack was happening. But the physical fight was only the beginning. As station security rushed to secure the unconscious assassin, Taeho calmly straightened his jacket and looked directly at Carven's delegation. His voice carried clearly through the chambers, communication systems reaching every delegate present. Honored members of the council, he said, his tone remaining perfectly diplomatic despite what had just happened. I believe we have a more important matter to discuss than territory disputes. It seems that some council members think assassination is an acceptable way to handle diplomatic disagreements. The chamber erupted in shocked voices as delegates realized what they had just witnessed. The environmental emergency, the perfect timing, the assassin's access to restricted areas. It was clearly not a random attack. Someone with serious resources and inside information had planned this attempt on the human ambassador's life. Carven's gray skin turned a paler shade, but he kept his composure. Ambassador Kim, these are very serious accusations. I trust you have evidence to support such claims. Taeho smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a friendly expression. Delegate Carven, I have something much better than evidence. I have a confession. The unconscious assassin was being dragged away by security, but everyone in the chamber had seen the impossible speed and precision with which the human diplomat had defeated him. The footage from the chamber's security cameras would be analyzed and studied for years to come. What happened in those 3 seconds would be talked about, studied, and argued over throughout the galaxy for many years to come. In that brief moment, Ambassador Kim Tae-ho showed why humans had not just survived on a dangerous planet like Earth, but had become strong enough to reach the stars. Second one, Tae-ho's left hand moved so fast it was almost invisible, striking Kyung-min's wrist with surgical precision. The plasma cutter flew from the assassin's grip, its safety systems automatically turning off as it hit the floor. The strike was not just fast, it was perfectly placed to hit the exact nerve cluster that would cause immediate paralysis in the attacker's dominant hand. This was not a lucky hit or a desperate move. This was the result of years of training in human martial arts techniques that have been developed over thousands of years of warfare. The strike targeted a specific pressure point that would disable an opponent without permanent damage. Second, while Kyung-min was still trying to understand what had happened to his weapon, Tae-ho's right hand grabbed the assassin's collar and pulled him forward. The ambassador drove his knee up into Kyung-min's solar plexus. With calculated force, the impact knocked all the air from the assassin's lungs and sent him stumbling backward, gasping for breath. But Tae-ho was already moving to his next attack. His elbow came around in a perfect arc, connecting with the side of Kyung-min's head. The blow was delivered with exactly the right amount of force to render the assassin unconscious without causing permanent brain damage. This level of control required not just speed and strength, but an intimate understanding of human anatomy and the precise application of violence. Second, 3. As Kyung-min collapsed unconscious to the floor, Tae-ho was already securing the area. He picked up the plasma cutter and activated its emergency beacon to alert station security. He simultaneously triggered his diplomatic communication device to record and broadcast everything that had just occurred. The entire sequence was captured by the chamber's security systems and witnessed by hundreds of delegates. The footage would show a human diplomat moving with speed and precision that seemed impossible, neutralizing a trained assassin before most observers could even register that an attack was happening. But this was more than just physical prowess. The real demonstration was of human preparation and intelligence. Tae-ho had not just happened to turn around at the right moment. He had known exactly when and how the attack would come. The ambassador straightened his jacket and looked directly at the Zelafy delegation. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's communication systems, reaching every delegate present despite the ongoing alarm sounds. My fellow council members, he began, maintaining his diplomatic tone even after defeating an assassin. I believe we need to discuss something more urgent than territorial disputes. It appears that certain members of this council have decided that murder is an acceptable form of diplomatic negotiation. Chamber filled with shocked voices and confused questions as delegates tried to process what they had witnessed. The timing was too perfect, the assassin's access too convenient. This was obviously not a random attack, but a carefully planned operation. Some aliens were checking their own security systems, trying to understand how an assassin had penetrated the station's defenses. Others were accessing communication networks to verify what they had just seen. Still others were calculating the political implications of an attempted assassination. During a council session, Carven rose from his delegation section, his yellow eyes blazing with barely controlled fury, but his voice remained diplomatically smooth. Ambassador Kim, these are extremely serious accusations against fellow council members. I trust you have solid evidence to support such inflammatory claims. Tae-ho's smile was cold and confident. Delegate Carven, I have something far better than evidence. I have detailed documentation of the entire conspiracy. The unconscious assassin was being secured by station security, but the real drama was just beginning. Tae-ho activated his diplomatic datapad and began projecting holographic displays throughout the chamber. The images showed financial records, communication logs, and personnel files that painted a complete picture of the assassination plot. Money transfers from Zelafy accounts to criminal organizations, messages discussing the need to eliminate the human ambassador before he could cause more problems. Most damning of all was a recorded conversation between Carven himself and higher-ranking Zelafy military officials discussing what they called the human problem and the need for a permanent solution. The chamber fell silent as delegates realized they were seeing evidence of the most serious breach of council law in recorded history. An attempt to assassinate a diplomatic representative during an official session was an act of war against not just humanity but the entire council system, but Teho was not finished with his revelations. He had more surprises that would shake the very foundations of galactic politics. The assassination attempt had been allowed to proceed because it served a larger purpose, ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings. He continued, his voice carrying new authority. Earth did not just accidentally discover this plot. We have been monitoring Zealothy communications and activities for months. We knew about this assassination attempt from the moment it was first discussed. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. Earth had intelligence gathering capabilities that no one had suspected. The primitive newcomers had been conducting surveillance operations against established galactic powers. How long have humans been watching? How much did they know? What other secrets had Earth uncovered? During its supposed period of learning and adjustment to galactic society, the failed assassination had become something much more significant. It was now a demonstration of human capabilities that would force every species in the galaxy to reconsider their assumptions about Earth and its people. As station security dragged the unconscious assassin away, Teho activated his diplomatic datapad and projected a holographic display that filled the entire chamber. The image showed a complex web of financial transactions, communication logs, and personnel records that told the complete story of the assassination. Conspiracy distinguished delegates, he began, his voice now carrying the authority of someone who had been preparing for this moment for months. What you have just witnessed was not a random attack on Earth's diplomatic mission. This was a carefully planned attempt to eliminate humanity's voice in this council, funded by those who consider us too dangerous to be allowed full membership in the galactic community. The holographic display shifted to show communication intercepts, each one verified with galactic standard encryption codes, messages between Zealothy military contractors, payment authorizations, and detailed intelligence about human diplomatic security procedures. Most shocking of all was a recorded conversation between Carven himself and the Zealothy defense minister, discussing what they called the human problem and the need to resolve it permanently before it became unmanageable. Council Speaker Thizes Nala clicked her mandibles in what translated as deep concern. Ambassador Kim, these are extraordinary accusations. If proven true, they represent the most serious breach of council law in our recorded history. But we must ask, how did Earth's diplomatic mission acquire such detailed intelligence about what should have been highly classified operations? Teho's smile widened, slightly honored. Speaker, that brings us to the real revelation. Earth joining the Galactic Council was not just about humanity finally achieving space travel. It was about the Council finally discovering that we had been watching, listening, and learning for much longer than anyone realized. The chamber fell completely silent as the implications of his words sank in. Several delegates began accessing their own intelligence networks, cross-referencing the data Teho had presented with their own classified information. The results were deeply troubling. Humanity had been intercepting galactic communications for over 50 years. Every diplomatic message, every military communication, every trade negotiation had been monitored, analyzed, and stored by Earth's intelligence services. We know about the Vexery mining operations in neutral space. Teho continued. The Morvani biological experiments on primitive species. The Zealothy plans to divide the Outer Rim territories among their client states. We know about secret military buildup, unauthorized territorial expansion, and violations of council law that have been hidden. For Decatus Carven leaped to his feet, his gray skin flushed with rage. This is impossible. Our communication networks use quantum encryption that your primitive technology cannot possibly decode. You are absolutely right, Teho replied calmly. Your technology is far superior to ours, which is why we did not try to decode your messages. We simply intercepted them before they were encrypted, using methods that your advanced civilizations never thought to guard against. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Earth had not just been gathering intelligence. They had been conducting the most successful espionage operation in galactic history, using humanity's reputation for primitive technology as perfect cover. Human agents had been working as maintenance staff, translators, and low-level technicians throughout the galaxy for decades. No one suspected that the primitive humans cleaning their facilities and maintaining their equipment were actually sophisticated intelligence operatives. But Teho had one more surprise. The assassination attempt you just witnessed was allowed to proceed because Earth's government wanted the Council to see exactly what happens when someone threatens. Human diplomatic personnel Lee Kyung-min was tracked from the moment he accepted his contract. His every movement on this station was monitored. The only variable was whether he would actually attempt to carry out his mission. The chamber erupted in confused discussion as delegates realized they had witnessed not just an assassination attempt, but a carefully orchestrated demonstration. Earth had turned the attack into a diplomatic victory, exposing the conspiracy while simultaneously showing that humanity was far more capable than anyone had imagined. Several alien species that had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers were now frantically reviewing their own security procedures. How many human agents might be working within their own organizations? How much classified information had been compromised? The Vexery delegation was accessing their mining operation databases. The Morvani were checking their biological research facilities. The smaller species were wondering what secrets Earth might know about their activicious toe. Watched the chaos with satisfaction. The failed assassination had accomplished exactly what Earth had hoped. It had exposed the conspiracy against humanity, while demonstrating that humans were not the primitive species everyone believed them to be. We did not come to the galaxy as conquerors, he said, as the chamber gradually quieted. We came as students, but we have been very good students. We have learned not just your languages and customs, but your weaknesses and secrets. The message was clear. Humanity had been underestimated, and that underestimation had been a critical mistake. The species that had dismissed Earth as irrelevant now found themselves exposed and vulnerable. Carven sat heavily in his chair, his political career effectively over the conspiracy he had helped organize had not only failed, but had revealed zealothy ambitions to the entire galactic community. Worse, they now knew that Earth possessed detailed intelligence about their military capabilities and strategic plans. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted fundamentally in just a few minutes. The quiet species from the small yellow star had revealed itself as a major intelligence power with capabilities that demanded respect, if not outright fear. 6 hours after the assassination attempt, the Galactic Council faced a crisis unlike any in its 1,000-year history. The humans who had been dismissed as primitive newcomers had revealed themselves as sophisticated intelligence operators. The failed attack had backfired completely, turning into a demonstration of human capabilities that left many delegates reconsidering everything they thought they knew about Earth. Council Speaker Thizes Nala had called for an emergency recess while the various delegations attempted to process the new reality. In private chambers throughout Station Nexus, hurried conversations took place as species that had previously ignored humanity suddenly found themselves wondering what other surprises Earth might have prepared. The Zealothy delegation was in complete chaos. Carven faced immediate recall to his homeworld, where he would likely face charges for unauthorized military action against a council member. The conspiracy he had helped create had not only failed, but had exposed his people's expansionist plans to the entire galactic community. Even worse, they now knew that Earth possessed detailed intelligence about their military capabilities, strategic plans, and secret operations. Decades of careful political maneuvering had been undone in a single afternoon. Other species were conducting their own emergency assessments. The Vexery discovered that their supposedly secret mining operations had been under human observation for years. The Morvani found evidence that their biological research programs had been infiltrated by human agents. Smaller civilizations that had aligned themselves with larger powers suddenly realized that their private communications and internal politics were likely known to Earth as well. The humans had not just been learning galactic languages and customs, they had been systematically gathering intelligence on every major civilization. Meanwhile, Tejo found himself in an unprecedented position. No longer was he representing a junior member species seeking acceptance in the galactic community. Earth had revealed itself as a major intelligence power that demanded respect from the established galactic order. When the council reconvened, the atmosphere had changed completely. Delegates who had previously barely acknowledged the human section now watched Tejo with careful attention. The casual dismissal and veiled threats had been replaced by the wary respect given to a potentially Dangerous rival, the chamber was quieter than usual as species that had been planning to support anti-human resolutions suddenly reconsidered their positions. Nobody wanted to be the next target of Earth's intelligence operations or find themselves facing human agents they had never suspected. Tejo rose to address the assembly. One final time, his simple black suit no longer seemed like a mark of primitive simplicity. Instead, it appeared to be the confident understatement of someone who did not need elaborate displays to command attention. Honored delegates, he began, Earth comes before this Council not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as equals demanding recognition. We have demonstrated that humanity possesses both the intelligence gathering capabilities to monitor galactic affairs and the defensive skills necessary to protect our interests. His words carried weight because everyone present now understood that they were not just diplomatic statements but practical assessments. Backed by proven capability, Earth had shown it could defend its personnel, gather intelligence on any galactic power, and turn attempted attacks into strategic victories. The question now is whether the Council wishes to work with us as partners or continue to treat us as threats to be eliminated. The choice is yours, but I suggest you choose carefully. The vote that followed was unanimous, though many delegates cast their ballots with obvious reluctance. Earth's status was upgraded from provisional member to full council participant with all the rights and responsibilities that position entailed. More importantly, humanity had established itself as a power that other species would approach with caution and respect. The days of dismissing humans as primitive or irrelevant were permanently over. Several delegations approached Tejo after the session offering trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and intelligence sharing arrangements. Species that had been planning to restrict human expansion suddenly wanted to negotiate favorable terms for cooperation. The Crystal Vexery offered to share advanced mining technology in exchange for human intelligence about their competitors. The Slug Morvani proposed joint research projects hoping to benefit from human infiltration capabilities. Even some of the smaller species that had supported the Zealothi began sending diplomatic messages, suggesting they had always believed in human potential and had never really opposed Earth membership. As the session concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, many cast final glances at the human section where Tejo was calmly organizing his papers. The quiet diplomat who had neutralized an assassin in 3 seconds had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. He had done it not through conquest or military threat, but through the careful application of intelligence, preparation, and precisely timed revelation. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity that day. Humans might be new to interstellar politics, but they had been practicing survival on a death world for millions of years. That experience had taught them to be patient, observant, and devastatingly effective when action became necessary. From that day forward, no galactic power would make the mistake of underestimating Earth again. The failed assassination had become humanity's introduction as a major player in galactic affairs, and throughout the galaxy things would never be quite the same. The universe had discovered that the quiet species from the small yellow star was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined, and that knowledge would shape galactic politics for generations.